You ready to do this, Matt?
Yes, sir. Punch it, Chewy.
Welcome, Super Friends, to the Fortress of... No, I'm sorry. Aloha, Super Friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot is Matt Shaw. We're two nerds that just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us, mahalo, for episode 172. We release every Thursday morning. You can find us on the website, fortofnerd.com. We have links to iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, and everywhere podcasts are available, brudda. Stop by and relax a while. If you like what you're hearing, hit that subscribe button and get us automatically each and every week in your ear holes. Matt, aloha!
Wow, did you just go somewhere?
I just watched Lilo and Stitch. That's really all it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know that episode of How I Met Your Mother when Robin comes back and she's completely changed her lifestyle and she's got those dreads in? That's how I feel like this is going to go tonight. I'm talking to a Hawaiian.
Not that bad, brother. Not that bad.
Oh, dear gosh. Oh, my goodness.
As I toss up the Shaka sign.
Oh, boy. Yeah, man.
So Matt, you and I, even though we released on our regular schedule, we actually haven't talked in like 12 days now.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a little while, and I didn't get much of a chance, but I wanted to once again wish your daughter Emmy a belated happy birthday.
Yes, she's so grateful. She's so grateful for your wishes, and she sends hers to you on the same day of your birth as her birth, just a few years.
I can't remember if we called on her day or like the day before. Okay.
Yeah, you did.
Because I think, if I recall right, we were like literally in this like dive shop waiting to get on a boat to go on this tour around the Na Pali coast of Kauai, and I literally had like 15 minutes, and I was like, ooh, we got to call Emmy. We got to do it right now because the time difference was going to get bad. Like if we waited, it was a 4-hour time difference at that point. So.
Right. You caught her right at cake time. It was perfect.
Nice. How was her birthday? Like, what did she get? How did it go?
It was fun. She was so excited about it for days and days and days because she's at the age now where she knows what's going on. She knows that things come and things go, and birthdays are one of those things, and she's just so excited for hers. And she got just a bunch of toys like Barbies and
of course,
other things that she really wanted. And she had a great day. Jessie made a delicious cake. Jessie's a fantastic baker and decorator of cakes, so she loves to do it for birthdays, and she got to make Emmy's a pink cake with sprinkles inside with pink frosting and pink and other color sprinkles on top. So
was it like a strawberry cake so it tasted pink?
No, she did not want a strawberry cake. She just wanted it to look pink.
Oh, okay.
So it
like
was
a vanilla?
Pink funfetti. Yeah, it was a vanilla cake with just like pink food coloring and funfetti inside. And, yeah, it was great. We still have some in the fridge. She has every day.
Pink overload, right?
Oh my gosh. Which is surprising. She didn't start liking pink until like the last month or two. I don't know what it is because it used to be blue. That was her color. And I was like, you're like me. I also like blue. Anyway, long story short, she had a great day. She was so excited she couldn't sleep the night before. And so it was a lot of fun.
That's cute.
Yeah, it was fun. But that was really, while you've been gone, honestly, that's like the big event that took place.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, my parents are moving, as we talked about before, and so there's just been a little bit of, sadness and kind of doing things with them for the last time, kind of a deal. So
yeah.
That's really been mostly it. Like, hanging out, enjoying the fam. Nothing near as exciting as going on a trip to Hawaii. And,
Well,
we've been, as everybody is, monitoring the coronavirus. That's the big topic. Less so about, am I going to get it? Or is somebody I love going to get it? More about, it's selfishly, I want to tell everybody on the podcast, I recognize that this is selfish. How is this going to impact me economically? As a small
Sure.
business owner, it freaks
Sure.
me out. Because I'm like, well, if nobody buys things, like, I'm screwed.
yeah.
So,
And for a lot of people, there's also the 401ks. Like if you're in a business and you got a 401k
Right.
or whatever, like the market volatility, like it's interesting because while like a lot of this wild, ride in the stock market and the economy has been going on, like I was just completely unplugged from everything. So like things are happening and I get back and I'm like, oh.
the world is different now. It's the zombie apocalypse.
Okay, I
Don't
know.
you know
apparently.
you can't get toilet paper?
I heard that there was a massive run on toilet paper and on bottled water.
Yeah.
And my question was why?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I get back and I was like, well, isn't the whole thing about like washing, cleaning, disinfecting?
Right.
So shouldn't it be like a run on like Lysol wipes, Lysol
Right.
spray, hand sanitizer, I don't pledge, whatever,
Right.
like all the disinfectant things.
Yep.
But toilet paper and water is like,
I know.
what are we doing? Are we planning on bunkering inside of our house for the next 6 years?
Yep, that's it. You can't get toilet paper, obviously.
Well, listen here, super friends. If you are out of toilet paper and in the region of one of the locations of the Fortress of Nerditude, stop on by. I will gladly loan you a roll so that you are not without during this massive time of crisis and chaos.
Notice he said loan. He expects payment in return.
Well, I mean, I'm not giving things away for free, Matthew Shaw.
No, and you should not. Here in Texas, there is not a lot of panic, to be honest.
That's good.
Toilet paper is in abundance, as is bottled water, but Utah, it is not the case. It's panic town over in Utah, and I'm not sure why, but it is.
I don't know. I heard all these craziness. I think my mom texted me on my birthday, and she said something like, toilet paper and water sold out everywhere. If you can find hand sanitizer, it's gold right now. You can resell it for a high markup. And I just looked at the text and then it's like, P.S. Happy birthday. I was like, well, okay, good to know. And I honestly looked at my wife and was like, I don't care, because I'm not bringing that stuff back from Hawaii in my bag. So it's like, well, if we're all gonna die because we don't have toilet paper, water, and hand sanitizer, it's been a good life. I'm going out on top. Right.
Anyway, so that's been a focus for people.
Yeah.
Do.
Did you play any video games? Consume any media over the last 2 weeks?
My concern is, this has been what I've been thinking about with video games, and we're not even going to talk about it because there's nothing to talk about. WTF Nintendo? What is going on? This is now, I just want to let everybody know, this is now the longest Nintendo Direct drought ever in the history of Nintendo Directs, which dates way back like to the Wii U, before the Wii U.
You know what that means, don't you?
It means they don't got nothing.
No.
You'll see.
I think that they're getting ready to drop a big bomb. They're going to drop something that's going to be like epic. I mean, plus we do have, like later this month, we have Animal Crossing's coming out. So while, yes, no directs, like they've got a big release coming, but I bet you like after that release comes, then they're like, okay, now we're going to kind of let the embargo go and they're going to drop some big news. That's my belief.
They have to, because there's literally nothing the rest of the year. When I look at the rest of my stuff, Sony, Microsoft, PC, there's games coming out this year that we know are coming out this year. With Nintendo, this is the only release, Animal Crossing, and it's been the only release for 6 months. And so, I mean, there's games that have come out before, but we know that March 20th, 2020, it was in September that we got that date. And here we are at that date and we have no idea what's coming. So that's been my video game-ness, is frustration with Nintendo trying to figure out what's going on. And I don't trust Nintendo. As a Nintendo fan, they've screwed me over so many times that I just don't trust them. I don't think they have anything, and I think
so let me ask you this before we tangent off way too far, which I'm totally okay with doing always. Right. But what would be a big reveal for you that if they dropped right now would like buy back a lot of faith from you?
Well, it doesn't need to be a reveal. What it needs to be is a release date for either Metroid Prime 4 or Breath of the Wild 2, and it needs to be this holiday season. That's for them to compete with everything that's coming out this holiday season. I believe that it needs to be one of those two or a new Mario Kart. That is the only thing that can salvage this. For me personally, as the Nintendo fan that I am, that is the only way that this can be salvaged. You cannot go a full calendar year with your biggest release being Animal Crossing, which was supposed to come out last year. That's my thoughts.
So, okay, I think there's a more likely chance of seeing Mario Kart or Metroid Prime than there is Breath of the Wild, only because it was at last direct right around E3. We got the little just teaser of Breath of the Wild 2.
Yep.
And there wasn't much to it. And so to me that says like they've started doing something, they worked up a little teaser, now they're really going to work on it for the next 2 to 3 years and then it'll come. That's my guess on that. But we haven't seen any whiff of a Metroid game. And if they've been keeping something like that completely under wraps and they're like, boom, here it is, it's coming out this fall, that would be massive.
I agree. So we'll see. I'm not hopeful because I don't trust Nintendo, but I got lots to look forward to on PlayStation this year.
Can Nintendo buy back Matthew Shaw's faith?
No.
We'll find out soon enough.
Anyway, that was it. So Hawaii, man.
Yeah, so it's interesting because of kind of how we recorded and how we kind of set everything up prior to my leaving. We totally forgot that like the day that last week's podcast was going to release was on my birthday and Emmy's birthday. We didn't even talk about that. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's gone on that we'll get into. Some of it this week that's gone on in the last week and a half. But Hawaii, let me tell you something, Matt. I needed a vacation. I was looking forward to a vacation with just Brita and I. Something that was going to be relaxing, chill, but yet we're going to do stuff that was exciting and fun and different. And Hawaii was everything I needed it to be and more.
Yeah. Awesome.
It was just beautiful. So we went over there and just real quick, I'll kind of tell you. Went over there, we spent 4 days in Oahu and we did all the touristy things right up front. So I did Pearl Harbor for a whole day, did the memorial, the Arizona Memorial, we did the submarine, the Bowfin, and we did a big tour of the Missouri. We did that on the first full day there.
Okay.
When we arrived, we went to Costco. We got some supplies and stuff, which, by the way, Costco on the islands, same cost as Costco on the mainland.
Really?
So it's totally worth shopping at Costco for groceries if you're going to be there a while to bulk up.
Nice.
Also, you can get a hot dog and a drink for still $1.50 at their food court.
Wow.
So it's one of the only places on the islands where you're going to get like mainland prices for something.
Huh.
So anyway, so we did that when we first got there. First full day was the Pearl Harbor day. And then I can't remember. I'm trying to remember because like some of this, because like we were there for like, 10, 11 days. But the second day we did a tour around the whole island, like a guided tour. And we went to the Polynesian Cultural Center. And that was amazing. I've wanted to go to the PCC for 20 years now. And we got to go through all these little villages and see all the different, all the different things there and the big show at the end of the night and the luau, and it was all amazing. And then we had a day where we just kind of like, we went down to Waikiki Beach because we were staying in Waikiki, and we just kind of swam in the ocean, kind of laid out, got a little bit of sun, walked around, we did some shopping. We drove to a different part of the island because we just started looking up local places to eat. And we're like, okay, best places to eat in Oahu. and there was this restaurant called Holloway Joe's. And it was weird because like we were driving around the other side of the island and we're in this like residential area. There's nothing that looks like restaurants. And all of a sudden we find this little like resort that's kind of tucked away in this residential area. And behind two of the buildings of the resort is this restaurant. And we went in there and we ate. But the back half of the restaurant hangs over this kind of like a cliff. And you're like looking down over this valley and it's built like a tree house. And so it was super cool.
Yeah.
We took a bunch of pictures and just kind of hung out. And Oahu was great. But Oahu is seriously like taking Las Vegas or LA and then dropping it on an island for everything that's kind of on the south side. All the Honolulu, the Waikiki. I mean, it's amazing, you know, great beaches, great surf, great sun, everything. But it's just really, really, really busy. And so we picked some things to try to kind of get away. We went and hiked Diamond Head, which is the big volcano that, you know, caved in out itself and was a crater like millions of years ago. And we hiked that and we did that and we just ate at local places and had some really great food. Then we flew over to Kauai for the next 5 days. And Kauai has maybe 75,000 people on the island total, whereas like Honolulu's got like 1 million people. And so it was way laid back. It was way chill. We did a boat cruise around the Nepali coast, which you can only get to by sea or by air. We did like this kind of like ATV, these side-by-sides, this ATV kind of tour where you go and see where they filmed like Jurassic Park and parts of Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark and just a whole bunch of movies on the kind of the interior of the island. We did that. We downloaded a guide called the Shaka Guide, and it's basically like GPS turn by turn, and it gives you like, you know, Hawaiian history, Hawaiian lore, corny jokes, information about the towns. And we kind of followed that, and we went on these like little side adventures where one day we went up Waimea Canyon, and that thing is gorgeous and beautiful, and all these little stops and whatnot, and we go all the way up to the top and then back down, and we go through these little towns of Hanapepe and Waimea and just all these little cool things.
Yeah.
And then the next day we do a tour, but it's like all of like the North Shore of Kauai, and it's all beaches. And so like we went to beaches that like you would like have to kind of find your way to get down to it. And on this one beach, like we went and walked across the entire beach. And then on the far side of the beach is this river that comes from the inland out to the ocean. And we had to wade in it, and we waded across it. It was like up like mid-thigh level. But if you wade across, then you can climb up these rocks and get up to this area where you can access like all these lava rocks where the ocean's splashing against it. And we found a bunch of locals that were up there actually fishing. And they're like, yeah, not a lot of you know, tourists find this spot and come up here. And so we just talked with them for like an hour. Everyone on the island's super friendly. We ate great food. We stayed up near the Hanalei Bay area up in Princeville. And so like we stayed in these like, we went through these like little surf towns and just like these little areas, and it's just super chill. No one's going fast. Like the speed limit on most of the roads is like 40 tops. Yeah. And so it takes you like an hour and 15 minutes to get from one side of the island to the other, but you don't care because everything's just beautiful to look at. And we kept stopping and going on these little adventures, and we'd find farmers markets. And one night when we were in Kapa'a town, we found like there were food trucks. It was like every first and third Saturday night they have this big kind of like street fair, and there was food trucks. And so like we just started eating our way through some food trucks and just like mixing with locals there and other tourists. And it was amazing. I mean, there's way too many things for me to kind of, you know, give a full breakdown, but it was what I needed it to be. It was what I wanted it to be. And also it was really hard to want to come back. Like today I was on a phone call with my boss, just trying to catch up on a few things and kind of getting prepared for a couple of projects coming down the road. And he's like, so how is it being back? I was like, yeah, it's good to be back. And he's like, is it? And I was like, no, it's not. And he starts laughing and I'm laughing. I was like, you know, you're in paradise. Like temperatures are like maybe 75 degrees, but you get the trade winds. So it's always breezy. There's no like bugs. Kauai is overrun, by the way, with chickens everywhere.
Really?
Chickens are Oh my gosh, Matt. Let me tell you something. The chicken on Kauai is the top of the food chain.
Wow.
There's no predators. So basically what had happened was chickens were brought over to the islands years and years and years ago, right? And chickens, mate, and they make eggs, and they make other chickens. And then those chickens, so chickens are reproducing. But in like 1981, a hurricane hit, and there was a lot of like domesticated chickens for like farming of eggs and things like this.
Yeah.
And when the hurricane came, it scattered all of those domesticated chickens with the already wild chickens that were all over the island. And they just continue to reproduce. They're all over the place. Parking lots, beaches, the forests. I mean, everywhere. It's literally the unofficial bird of the island because they rule the roost. And on some of the other islands, like Oahu, the mongoose was introduced. Well, the mongoose finds chicken eggs and eats chicken eggs. So like the chicken population on Oahu is really kind of low, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
But no predators were introduced into Kauai for the chicken. So the chicken is literally the king of the jungle. It's the top of the food chain, which is just kind of nuts. And they just do their own thing. And so Kauai is beautiful. However, be prepared to be woken by chickens in the morning because that happens.
That's weird.
I found that out every freaking morning. But yeah, it was wonderful. It's one of those things, Matt, where halfway through I was telling Brita, we should find jobs. We should stay here.
Yeah.
We'll have grandma and grandpa bring the kids to us. Let's not even go back. Let's sell our house from here, that sort of thing. And she just kind of laughed and was like, oh, I'm serious. But then my next thought was, I got to talk to Matt and we got to talk to Jesse and Brita because it would be so much fun to like group up together, go back, and to take our kids. And I started thinking about this because we were there without our kids to celebrate our anniversary. But if you were to even go like with the kids, you can go and still do it relatively cheap. Go for a week, stay on one island, not bounce between, a couple. Go to Costco, load up on groceries, do at least breakfast, lunch, and maybe even dinners, together, have breakfast before you leave for the day, take lunches and have picnics on the beach or up in parks or whatever, and then come back and do dinner. But like the kids would just love playing together and playing in the sand and making sandcastles and playing in the ocean. And I went, man, what are we doing? Like, I get it. Like we've done some other stuff for family, get together vacations, but
yeah,
we should be going to paradise, Matt.
Right.
You and I need to talk more about this off the podcast because it's very doable.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean that would be a blast, obviously.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Disney.
Sure.
But you can only go there so many times, whereas there's 7 of the 8 islands we could go to.
Yeah.
And see new things every single time.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, that was my big, long
it's awesome.
10, 11 day trip. It was what it needed to be. It is good to be home, to sleep in my own bed, to see the kids. Like, that's all good. And one last note, like, I'm super, super grateful to my in-laws, to Chris and Chip, that they were willing to come down and watch the kids, because that did really make it possible for Brita and I to have this experience. Without them, we wouldn't have been able to have gone by ourselves and done all the things, because we did cram in a lot of things. We left ourselves room to explore and do whatever, but we also did try to schedule a number of things. And if we'd taken the kids, we wouldn't have done nearly as much stuff as we did.
Yeah.
So, big shout out, big thank you to them.
Shout out to the in-laws. Woot, woot.
Yes. So anyway, that was my week. I didn't play any games. I didn't watch, well, I guess I did watch a movie or two on the plane rides, but that's something we can talk about later.
Yeah.
I think it's time to get into a action-packed Rebel Intelligence. What do you say?
Let's do it.
I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
All right, Matt. Bothans have been murdered. it is time for Rebel Intelligence.
Yeah.
I'm gonna mix this up and I'm gonna kick this off because this is kind of a big thing.
Let's do it.
And it's affecting everything. So we're not gonna get into the details of the medicine and the politics and whatnot of the coronavirus, but obviously this coronavirus thing is gotten huge and it's having a massive impact on things like the economy. It's having a massive impact on things like travel. It's having a massive impact on things like, the stock market and production of goods and services. But it's now leaking over into pop culture, media. So here's a list, and let's try to make sure we get kind of all of this because there's a lot of stuff that's been going on. So we know that the James Bond movie, No Time to Die, has now been delayed to November of this year on fears of the coronavirus. They basically said that I think that it was supposed to be launched it's supposed to be launched like relatively soon, like within like a week or two from now, or real shortly. But of course, they don't want to do a big release because they were trying to do it over in China. They were going to do a big red carpet thing, and in South Korea. And so like all of a sudden, we're being hit with coronavirus there. So boom, they're moving that back, right? So that got announced. Then just literally within like yesterday, E3, which is for us is a big gaming mecca. It's the electronics expo that talks about video games, new consoles, all of that. They just announced that they were canceling officially all E3. So it's not like last year where Sony decided it wasn't going to have a press conference.
Mm-hmm.
E3, the organizers, are canceling it altogether because, admittedly, you have game developers and software developers coming from places like Japan, South Korea, all the press that's going to come from all over the world. I mean, it's a massive conference. People come from all over the world for this. And so the ESA, the Entertainment Software Association, said, we're just going to go ahead and straight up cancel it. I'm super bummed that this isn't going to happen because this has been something I look forward to every year for years now. But I can't blame them for wanting to cancel a big gathering in an event where people from all over the world are going to come together, because it's only more likely that someone's going to have it or not know they have it and bring it to an event like that, and it could potentially infect hundreds of thousands of people.
I agree. Here's my thing with E3. I'm not bummed about it. One, because I think this is the beginning of the end for E3.
It could be.
I think this is the beginning of it. I think people are going to realize, I don't need to be there. I can do what Nintendo's been doing and what Sony just started to do a few years ago.
Yeah.
Nintendo doesn't show up anymore. They haven't showed up for years. Nintendo just puts a little video on your screen and you watch it. And I think that's what we're going to see. And we're going to see it this year too. Yes, E3 is canceled, but I have a feeling everyone's just going to stay together and say, okay, this is the weekend, and we're going to take our slots and we're going to make our announcements. And it's going to be just a different version of it. And then I think this is the beginning of the end for E3. And I feel bad for those that are involved with E3 because they're going to lose their jobs. I just don't envision E3 being a thing anymore.
And then there's also the people that bought tickets already. Like, you got to figure out, tickets and travel and hotel stuff and this, that, and the other. So that got canceled.
Which all the way in June, which I'm a little surprised. I'm a little surprised they didn't wait a little longer. But because I think it's so international, it made more sense.
I think that's realistically, it's because it's the international ness of the event. Yep. Today, like dominoes falling, right? The president of the United States announced that he's suspending all travel to and from Europe, except for like the UK. So that's going to affect all sorts of people, celebrities, actors, actresses that maybe, production where like go back a year or two, right? When all the stuff was being filmed for the Game of Thrones over in England.
Right.
So if you got movies that are being filmed anywhere over in Europe, they're going to be canceled. And so, of course, we hear news that Falcon and the Winter Soldier got delayed because they were filming, I think, in the Ukraine. And the Ukraine has a small outbreak going on over there, so they've put that on hold. So that's been on hold. Now travel is being banned for the next 30 days between the U.S. and Europe. Then I saw just a few minutes before we started recording that Tom Hanks and his wife Rita Wilson are in Australia, and they said they were feeling kind of run down, and they were just, feeling tired, and then all of a sudden she was running a fever, and then it would disappear, and then run a fever and disappear. And so they got tested in Australia, and Tom and Rita have been tested positive for the coronavirus. So they're being quarantined in Australia according to all the rules and regulations, all the things they need to limit their exposure to others.
Yep.
And then you just told me that the NBA has just suspended its season. Now, you and I had to talk about this. I mean, I know this is sports, but that's still part of pop culture and the greater kind of zeitgeist. They're not canceling the season, which, we're, early, mid-ish March right now. And the playoffs, though, start at, the end of April.
Yeah.
So we're a little over a month and a half away from the playoff time. But literally, apparently, you were saying Rudy Gobert, a member of the Utah Jazz, was tested positive, and they were getting ready to tip off the game. And you said that the refs had to run on, and
staff ran out.
Medical staff,
and just said, "Hey, yo,
we're canceling the game."
This game is not happening. And then, literally within 10 minutes of them canceling that game and Rudy Gobert's test coming back positive, they said, "We're suspending the season," which is knee jerk for me. I don't think they needed to do it immediately. There's no reason to do it immediately because there's still games being played right now, and I think you could wait till tomorrow and think about it for a hot second. But with everything else being canceled, I mean, I think it's the right move.
Yeah.
I just don't know that it needed to be like
so. I thought about
fast.
that. I thought about that too for a hot minute, but I started realizing, the way it's transmitted is through water vapor, right? Through droplets. So sweating. People are, touching their eyes, wiping sweat out of their eyes,
right.
Physical contact. I was like, oh no, Rudy Gobert's a petri dish if he's actually playing. And anyone that's going to come in contact with him, teammate, opposing team, refs, sideline reporters, towel boys, whatever, it could be bad. So I think they made the right call in canceling the game. NBA canceling the whole season's probably good because you have one team now for sure that's not going to be able to compete. So how do you really continue on with the games when you have to hamper one? How do you make that a fair thing, right? So I think they made the right call.
Yeah, I mean, then you have to look at how did he get it?
Right, that's exactly.
NBA, he didn't travel overseas.
Right, and
I guarantee
he runs around with other NBA players.
Yeah, there's dozens of NBA players that have already had this. We already know that it's mild for 89% in America so far, 80% in the world, but 89% in America, these are mild symptoms. And Rudy Gobert has had it. That's what the report's saying. He has had it for a while, and he's not been feeling well. However, he said he felt good and strong enough to play tonight. He was in the locker room in Oklahoma City ready to play. Yep. It's very interesting. So we shall see. And it appears that Tom is fine and his wife, they're fine. Yeah. They're not in the hospital. They're on kind of a self-quarantine situation. No one's on a respirator or anything like that. So that's the good news for them as well. But I think this is very interesting for me from a psychological perspective from the United States on whether how we can prepare and then heal a little bit as a country, because we don't know anybody who's been impacted by this yet. Not in the U.S. We hear over in Washington that old people are dying in an old folks home, but that's the vast majority of Americans aren't being exposed to this, and we don't know anybody who's been exposed. But now we know there's a real celebrity that everyone in the world knows and loves, and now we've got this NBA basketball player who was an all-star this year, who has it. I think once we see
more high-profile
people get it, and then they recover and they're fine in 2 weeks, that I think maybe those figures of the mortality rate and the age of these people that are dying kind of come into effect, and maybe it stabilizes things after a bit of turmoil for a week or two. We shall see. That's my hope. I don't know. It's crazy times, though. It's just crazy.
So something else that's interesting to me is we have other big kind of gatherings that are being canceled, but then others that aren't. So right now, San Diego Comic-Con, which takes place, I think, usually right around in June, and then WonderCon, which is next month in Anaheim, they're both still on the schedule. Whereas like South by Southwest, Coachella, and the Emerald City Comic-Con have all been canceled or postponed.
Right.
But San Diego Comic-Con and WonderCon are still on the schedule for now. But these are also big events that have people that come in from all over the U.S. and all over the world. So it'll be interesting to see after some of these big dominoes here in the last, few hours start happening, if we start seeing other big events start saying like, hey, look, E3 just got canceled. The NBA season, maybe we should postpone or cancel as well and see, let this thing ride out in the sake of public health, right?
Yeah, and I think if your event takes place in the next 2 months, you cancel it. I think that's responsible, and I think it's to help. Look, we know that China and South Korea now have kind of the curve is flattened and is starting to go down. And
if the numbers are accurate.
Yeah,
right?
It took a complete shutdown.
Yeah.
Like no one in and out. And that's what canceling these events does, is it keeps people away from transmission and it keeps them from getting out of control. So I think it's a good thing they're being canceled for the long term. And I'm glad that companies are not seeing only the dollar signs, that they're saying we need to keep people safe. And for the long run of our business too, we need to curb this thing. So at the very best, I think if you take China, for example, December is when they really caught fire with it. And they're just now in the last 3 or 4 days starting to see the curve go steep down to new cases being reported. And it's starting to get much, much, much smaller. That's 2.5 months. And we just started getting it last month, and the outbreak didn't really go crazy until a week ago. So we're looking at 2.5 months. So I think, I don't know that anything in June needs to be canceled.
So let me ask you a question then, Matt. Last week and a half, I didn't talk to our friend Bob Iger because I was on vacation. Yeah. And Bob understands not to interrupt my vacation.
Yeah.
No. But Bob Iger and the new CEO, Bob Chapek, they've announced that the Marvel University, the Avengers campus, that's going to be opening at Disney California Adventure July 18th of this year.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a likelihood that due to the coronavirus that this could get pushed back?
Yeah, I think there's a decent chance of that. I'd say it's probably 50-50. I do think that come July 15th, the parks will be open. I don't think that's the reason that we wouldn't see it premiering. I think it's if Disney goes the way that they have in Shanghai and in Tokyo with the parks there, and they just shut them down for a couple weeks, that's going to push work back. Likely going to push work back.
Sure. Yeah.
However, I could see them like just testing the 100 people that are going to be working on it and just saying, okay, you guys are confined to Disney California Adventure and you got to work and you got to stay in the hotel at Disneyland Hotel and you'll be fine. I could also see them doing that because it's important for something like this to be done on time. And I do not see that I think the peak, we're just starting to see the dominoes fall. I think the peak is in the next few weeks, and then then it will start to flatten out. And come July, I mean, it better be done. We'll see.
Yeah. I think that's all the kind of the big things that have been announced in the last week or so in kind of our world of nerd and pop culture that have been kind of announced, closings, shutting down, pushing of dates and that such. I anticipate though that we're going to hear about more stuff in the next coming weeks.
I agree.
So, let's move on, Matt. What do you have for me?
So let's go to Disney Plus world and let's talk about something we've all been asking for and hoping for, and finally they gave it to us. And it's a Beauty and the Beast prequel about Gaston and LeFou. I mean, we've been clamoring, like, please give me more background. I don't know enough about these two characters. And Disney is giving it to us in the form of a Disney Plus movie.
Really?
Thank goodness.
Maybe I need to call Bob back because I don't know many Disney fans that have been clamoring for a Gaston and LeFou backstory. No,
nobody has, but we're getting it, and I'll watch it.
Is it animated or is this gonna be live action?
No, this is as far as I can tell. This is going to be a live action prequel with Josh Gad and whoever played Gaston. I don't even know. Let me see. Oh, hold on. It is, I am mistaken. It will have Luke Evans, who played Gaston, and Josh Gad, who was LeFou. However, this is a series. It is a 6-episode musical event prequel.
Huh.
So, not a movie. I thought it was a movie. My mistake. This is a 6-episode musical event. There you go.
I think that's going to be a hard pass for me.
I will watch it because there's nothing else on Disney Plus.
Well, there's that, I guess.
I mean, they're kind of laying an egg on that, in my opinion. We'll see. I'll watch it. I really like Josh Gad a lot, so I could see myself watching this with Jesse. And I like musicals. I'm not gonna lie. We'll see.
I like musicals too. I just don't know that I care to see something like, I don't know. It's just I have no interest.
I don't care about it, but I'll probably watch it in passing. I mean, 6 episodes. I could watch it in a weekend with Jesse. 3 episodes a night.
All right, Matt. I've got 2 more things, and I'm going to go with the one that's going to boil our blood first. That way we can end on a good note. Oh. So, Star Wars Episode 9. Let's revisit this little gem for a second here.
Okay, great.
I have a real problem with the movie. I think I've made that very clear. But what is becoming even more of a problem for me, it really just sits with me wrong, is that Lucasfilm, Disney, however you want to slice this bird, what they are doing is they're realizing that they rushed too much story in this movie. They slammed too much together without explanations. So they've been going back and using other medium to try to help fill out the narrative, to explain things. So we've talked a few times about how the visual dictionary that they released is an official canon book, right. and that's given us a bunch of information. Now we're finding out that the Rise of Skywalker novelization of the movie is going to expand upon the opening scene when Kylo Ren is encountering strange creatures, trying to find the Sith Wayfinder, and that we're going to find out from this book, which, by the way, comes out March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, that it's going to give us the answer to how Emperor Palpatine came back, because we're going to find out in this book that Emperor Palpatine was really a clone of the original Palpatine, and he used some sort of force, some sort of device to transfer his essence at the time of his death to his clone. Now, the idea of cloning Palpatine is nothing new. This idea had been done before in books that are considered legends now. They're not canon, which is also something that kind of gets my blood boiling a little bit because they've realized, oh, hey, there was actually a lot of good content in some of these old legends.
Right.
So let's steal some of these characters and, fit them back in other places. Hello, Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Right.
But with this novelization, they're adding on to... A novelization of the Star Wars books is literally just like, we're going to give you the movie in a book form.
Yes.
But now they're going to add and expand upon it to try to right and correct some of the wrongs that the movie did and let us know that, oh, by the way, this was a clone and he transferred his essence. This infuriates me, Matt. It just makes me so angry because it's like, if this was key, critical, important for us to know, why was this not in the movie in the first place? This should have been in the movie. Cut down on some of the other nonsense that's not needed. Give us more exposition. Give us this information, because the problem's going to be this, Matt. 15 years from now, 10 years from now, some kid's going to want to watch the Star Wars movies because his dad or his uncle or his older sister or, mom is going to say, I loved the Star Wars movies. This kid is going to watch these movies and think, oh, here's all the information I need to know in the movies.
Right.
And they're not going to realize that there's all these unanswered questions that, well, this was answered in a visual dictionary of the book. This was actually offered an explanation in the novelization of the movie. And to top it off, there's another book. We talked about the whole age, these new books that are coming out.
High Republic.
The High Republic, right? These books.
Yeah.
These are coming out, but there's some other books that are going to come out. They're going to take place, I think, after or something. One of the books explains who Rey's father is. Because we don't know what happened, how did Palpatine hook up with someone?
Yeah.
No, what we end up finding out is Rey's father is actually a clone of Palpatine that was aborted essentially because it doesn't have any force ability, but yet they found out the clone still had the ability to sustain life, and so Palpatine kept that clone around, and then that clone ended up marrying and having a child. So now it takes Rey from being this person who we don't know to now all of a sudden Rey's a Palpatine, to now all of a sudden we find out Rey is not only the granddaughter of Palpatine, but is essentially the daughter of Palpatine because it was Palpatine's clone that just lacked the force ability.
They've made this so much worse, and I can't handle it anymore.
Ridiculous.
I can't handle it anymore. I cannot handle this.
Yep.
It's terrible. Look,
this is what I want to say is that for all the crap that I've given George Lucas over the years for some bad choices later on, he did a lot of real good things with the original trilogy. When he went back and then started tinkering with his original trilogy, he started getting a little off the rails, and then he came back in with the prequels and just made a mess of a lot of stuff. But look, even George Lucas, I don't think, would be able to blunder this badly that he wouldn't tell a story. George Lucas at least understood the idea, even if his writing wasn't always great, even if his dialogue sometimes was wooden, he at least understood, I have to tell a story from start to finish, but I have to actually tell the story, not then come up with a, by the way, here's a novelization, and here's a visual dictionary, and here's a whole nother, he would never let that happen. And what is going on with this and this untold stuff and telling it from a different place, it's just wrong. It's such bad decision making, and I want someone to come in at some point and take the reins and just say, this is crap. We're cutting all this out. All these novelizations, all this visual dictionary, that's all Legends 2. None of that's canon. We're sticking to what's in the movie. Let's just live and die by what we put to film and not screw around with it because you're just pissing fans off.
Yep. I have nothing more to say. Well said. I agree 100%. Rise of Skywalker is the worst Star Wars movie. Final opinion.
All right, let's move on.
All right. Here's some interesting news. A little surprising for me, at least. Marvel's WandaVision has wrapped production.
Ooh.
Already. So we know that this was initially slated to debut in 2021, but it's recently been moved up to December of 2020. It's already done. As far as the filming and the production has wrapped. Yet this is my we briefly spoke about this before the podcast. Yet this isn't supposed to come out till December.
Yeah.
And we've got Falcon and Winter Soldier, which has been delayed, which is supposed to come out in October.
Yeah, September.
Sometime
October.
this summer or early fall.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a swap here. I'm just going to predict it now.
Take the one that's done.
Swap. Yeah, you take the one that's done and you let coronavirus run its course, and then you finish filming it and you release it in December. I'm feeling a swap.
I think that's possible if and only if the two don't rely on one story happening first before the other chronologically for reasons.
Yeah.
But if they're separate enough,
can it? It can't.
Who knows?
I mean, I guess it can if they go back in time, because Falcon Winter Soldier takes place in the timeline after Endgame.
Yep.
And then this is going to take place between around Civil War-ish.
Maybe.
Supposedly, I would assume. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Blah, blah, blah. It's done. So, happy day. Interesting. I'm excited for this one more than any of the other things that have been in production for Disney
Come on,
Plus.
what about Moon Knight?
Okay, I said
And
that
She-Hulk.
are in production. I am
in
excited for
production.
Moon Knight.
Okay.
Moon Knight looks sick. I don't know anything about it. I know nothing about the comics, which makes me more excited. I just know that dude looks freaking sick.
Yeah. I did see something else which didn't make the cut. Do you remember we talked a little bit about the new Batman suit that we saw pictures of?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
There's now been pictures of the Batmobile.
Yeah.
And I don't like it. I don't like it.
It's fine. It's whatever.
It looks like an old muscle car that's just
it's
a little batsy. I don't know. Anyway, that's not my last thing. I just remember that I saw it and
yes, I remember that too.
I was thinking comic books and Moon Knight, and then I thought the Dark Knight and Batman. Anyway, my mind did a little rabbit trail there and went on.
Yes.
So the last thing I have, this one I'm excited about. This is where I want to end my Rebel Intelligence. Do you have anything else in Rebel Intelligence? Or are you out?
I do. I've got one more.
So this is where I'll end mine, and then you can end yours. So I have praised this video game for a long time. The Last of Us. It is one of my absolute favorite games. There's been talks about a Last of Us movie for a while. About trying to get this off the ground, trying to make this happy. We know that Naughty Dog, the company behind The Last of Us, is also responsible for the Uncharted games, which are amazing.
Right.
And they've been having some problems and struggling trying to get an adaptation of the Uncharted movie. So I thought we're still going to go for a movie version of The Last of Us. It doesn't appear so. Now it looks like it's going to be coming to HBO. Naughty Dog has just announced that they're teaming up with HBO to do a Last of Us series, and Neil Druckmann, who was heavily involved in the creation and story of The Last of Us, is going to be working directly with a writer at HBO. That Neil Druckmann is actually going to be co-writing and directing The Last of Us series. It's due out in May. The sequel to the game is due out in May.
Okay.
So we don't know when this show is going to come out necessarily, but I have such faith and trust in Neil Druckmann with The Last of Us that I have no doubts, no fears, no concerns that this is going to be amazing. Yeah. I don't personally have HBO right now.
Well,
I canceled it after Game of Thrones was over, and I went, I don't need it. But I tell you what, when The Last of Us goes to HBO, I will sign back up with HBO Go. I will get it, and then I'll, of course, binge all the other HBO
as
stuff
many series as you can.
Yeah, that I haven't seen in a while. But I am anticipating this. I'm looking forward to this. The second I hear anything about a release date, I'm going to throw a party. I'm just, it's going to be a joyful. It will be a day of jubilee, Matthew.
Yes. Here's the deal. When I saw this was going to be a series instead of a movie, I thought, well, this fits better. From what I understand about The Last of Us, I'm not all the way through it. I know that, but even from what I've played, I was like, this is so much more episodic in nature than it is like a movie. It would have to be several movies, I feel like, just to get the right storytelling, because it's so steeped in character and story.
Yep.
That it would be tough to. Anyway, I agree.
This is the right call.
Yeah, definitely the right call. Excited for it. I think it sounds cool. So, the last thing that I have, speaking of Batman, kind of, Tessa Thompson, who plays Valkyrie.
Yep.
In all of the MCU stuff.
Yep.
We know that Thor: Love and Thunder is coming out. We don't know a ton about it still. However, she let it slip a ripper that Christian Bale is going to be the villain of Love and Thunder.
Ooh.
So we literally got no other details. We know nothing about this movie except Natalie Portman is in it.
Right.
And
Chris Hemsworth.
Now we know, assumed Chris Hemsworth, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes. And then Christian Bale now. A brand new villain. Obviously hasn't played anything in the MCU yet that we're aware of. Maybe they were sneaky.
So we're gonna get Natalie Portman, Chris Hemsworth. Tessa Thompson's got to be in it if she slipped it.
Oh yeah. Well, she's the new King of Asgard,
right?
So to speak.
Exactly. Spoilers. Yes. So
if you don't know that yet, I don't know where you've been living.
I like this.
Yeah.
My only concern, don't make him a one-off villain. Don't make him a one-off villain. Make him somewhere where he's going to return, because we've seen a lot of great villains in the MCU, but they're one-offs, and then we don't see him again.
We'll see. I like Christian Bale. I really do. I'm excited. I think this is great. I'm excited for this movie. Big fan. I'm excited. I haven't said that enough, but I'm excited.
All right. Well, that's all I got. Do you have anything else? You're done?
I'm done.
All right. That was a lengthy Rebel Intelligence, but that's okay. So, last week, we had a conversation about reality TV. And the question of the week was, what is your favorite reality TV show? Obviously, I said mine was Survivor. That was a given. And Matt, as I recall, you said yours was...
Did we do a favorite?
We
kind of picked like our favorite ones. I don't know that we said which one was our favorite.
I thought we did. I thought you said yours was The Bachelor.
It's the one I watch the most consistently.
Oh, well, maybe that's what
I don't know if it's my favorite. Queer Eye would probably be my favorite. If you had a gun to my head, I'd probably say Queer Eye.
And I know I did talk about Shark Tank because I love Shark Tank. But anyway, here's the deal. Super Friends. I was gone. I was on vacation. So I got the question of the week out today, the day of recording, really, really late. We got 2 responses. I appreciate the Super Friends being there for me and realizing that
that's not bad.
I kind of flubbed this one a little bit. It happens from time to time. We're going to go over to email, fortivenerd@gmail.com. We have Peter Christensen. He says, Dear Nerds, for Matt's dad, Vancouver, Washington is a tax hater's paradise. Washington has no state income tax, and Oregon, across the river where all the stores are, has no sales tax. So he's got that going for him.
He's got that going. He's aware of it and excited for it.
Yes, I'm sure. Peter says, I'm indeed a proud product of Florida's education system. Or rather, I'm proud, despite being a product of Florida's education system. Says, relax, I kid. Florida has a structural problem with funding education. Many Floridians are retirees or empty nesters who don't have skin in the game to make a good education system. Large parts of the economy are low-wage service jobs. It has a lot of poor people for historic and geographic reasons. However, it is a large and dynamic place, especially near the big metro areas. And like most cities, there are ways for opportunistic parents to find the right district or the right magnet programs or the right teachers to make sure their children get a good education. There's no denying Floridian culture is much more Jersey Shore than Ivy League. But I think he does bring out a good point, something like I hadn't thought about, because I always just know that the Florida school system's pretty right. Lackluster. But yeah, I didn't even take into account like the empty nesters, the retirees. Like, why would they want to send their tax money for schools? Because they don't got kids in them. They don't care. They want it for social programs and stuff. And so that would make sense. He says, congrats on finishing Friday Night Lights. The Matt Saracen shovel scene is one of the most powerful I've ever seen on TV. Amen to that. That one always gets me.
It's hard. It's hard.
We haven't tried the Choose Your Own Adventure shows, but my kids love the Netflix Carmen Sandiego show. It's a little like Jason Bourne in that Carmen is a super agent trained by an evil organization, but she escaped and is now their worst nightmare, even though she's not really a good guy. Worth a watch when your kids are at the right age. We're not big reality TV watchers, but here's some we have enjoyed. Average Joe, a bachelor-like show where they get some hot chick, all excited about having 20 hot guys compete for her attention, instead gets normal, awkward, chubby nerds, not handsome guys. It was great watching these awkward guys shine in their own way and to see her come around to a lot of their good qualities. But twist, halfway through the show, 10 hunks join the show, and all the average Joe's insecurities come back. Really fun show. Peter, I'll agree with that. I used to watch the mess out of that show, and it was exactly like you described. It was like, oh man, she's not going to like these guys. And eventually you realize, nope, she's turning the corner and she's seen them for the human beings that they are and not going after the materialistic, on the surface stuff. And then they always introduce the hunky guys in, and it's like, well, there goes that. And I got to say, great television, very dramatic.
Jeez, sounds wild, man.
Maybe not necessarily, the best mirror to hold up to our society at times, but very entertaining.
Sure.
He goes on to say, Shark Tank. We end up watching this show when we go on vacation. It's super well made. It gives a lot of opportunities to teach my kids about business principles beyond what they say in the show, and everybody becomes a bit of a business expert. I hate Mr. Wonderful, but he's usually right. And I agree. He comes across as a jerk. He's really easy to hate, but man, if he isn't right on way too much of the time.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Jersey Shore, season 1 of this show is the highest highs that a show can reach. It is like visiting another world, anthropology in motion. All the time I think about Snooki going back to the house to try to wake up JWoww and tell her there were gorillas at the beach. Gorillas, big buff dudes. It was the same unbridled enthusiasm and purity of Andy's evil Dr. Porkchop scene from Toy Story 3, except devoted to GTL, Gym Tan Laundry. You'll never have another experience like it, and neither will they. Season 2 was terrible because they became self-aware and were acting like themselves instead of being themselves. And they are bad actors. Despite that ode to Ronnie, the situation, Pauly D, Vinny, Snooki, JWoww, Dina, Sammy, and Angelina, I still have to say that Shark Tank is our favorite reality TV show. We binged it just a few weeks ago in Hawaii. Cheers, Peter Christensen.
I've got a lot of questions, Peter. Got a lot of questions. I'm not going to ask them.
Ask some questions because I've seen the Jersey Shore. Because
Jersey Shore is trash.
I agree. It is. But that first season, Peter's not wrong. It was this really unique environment, because I didn't grow up anywhere near the Jersey Shore.
Sure. Yeah,
I don't know people that are Jersey Shore like necessarily. So when I saw that first season, it was this wild, like, I'm watching people in America that I have no real way of relating to, like, what they do in their life, like what their life is all about. And so, like Peter said, anthropology in motion, like, it was just so unique to watch them. And then everything after that first season was, they knew what they were doing at that point. They knew that if they played up these certain aspects of their personality, overblew it, that it would make good drama and it would be good for TV and it'd be good for ratings, this, that, and the other. And so it didn't feel authentic and it became boring. But that first season, ooh, man, like it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous for so many reasons, but it was fun to watch.
Oh, gosh. Okay. I mean,
seriously, have you never seen it?
Of course I've seen it.
Okay.
I was not a disciple of it because I watched it and I thought, boy, these people are annoying and I hate them. And so I didn't watch it anymore. But yeah, I mean, how do you live your life without knowing who Snooki is? I mean, unfortunately.
Prior to that show, though, no one knew Snooki. Unless now maybe you lived that Jersey Shore life, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, Peter, I gotta say, though, Shark Tank, man, I agree. Every single time I watch that, I feel like I learn a little bit more about business.
Good stuff.
Become a bit more of a business expert, even though I'm not an expert. But I like that he watches it with his kids and, like, they ask questions and he uses it like,
that's great.
A teaching opportunity. That's awesome. All right, let's go over to Twitter at Fort of Nerd. We've got one Mamba Mentality at DSpin67 says, I'm not a reality show fan. Those shows are always scripted to show people being angry and negative towards each other. I am a fan of competition cooking shows like Chopped and Hell's Kitchen.
Okay, yeah, I like those.
I mean, I did talk about the Great British Baking Show on Netflix, right? Like,
we talked about that for a while, I feel like.
I know.
We both did. Like that one.
But that's the thing, like, while DSpin67 makes the point, like, you know, the reality shows that seem scripted and just seem about anger and negativity, then you got the cooking shows and it's like, it's about a real competition and it's not like, there's no, like, manufactured drama. I mean, they try to make it, you know, seem like a little more than it is, but, like, it's just who can make the better dish, the better, you know, steak, pastry, whatever, bread, whatever they're doing. And I like that. Plus,
agreed. I
also think that I learned stuff, too, when I watch that.
So, well, it's educational and it's motivating.
It's motivating to make me want to eat. But sure.
That's still motivating.
Super friends, thank you so much for coming through in the clutch and getting those answers in this week. We always appreciate your responses and the opportunity we get to interact with you. It's one of our favorite parts of the show. Matt, super friends are out there. They can help us out this week. What can they do for us?
Wash your hands for 20 seconds and stay away from people that are coughing on you. Please don't get sick. Don't get the flu either, because the flu's still out there. Just, and don't buy toilet paper, all the toilet paper. At least buy toilet paper if you need to buy toilet paper in your regular grocery routine. And bottled water if you choose. But, be safe, be smart, and don't freak out too much. And then, you should listen to us, as always, and tell your friends, your family, other relatives on this earth and on any other planet they may be, and or any existence or plane they may be on, to listen to us, because we are not just on this earth, but on other earths and also in the great beyond. So yeah, listen, like, subscribe, comment. It sounds like we're doing a YouTube channel, and we will be happy to engage with you as we do every week. We love your answers to the question we pose.
Awesome. All right, Matt. So this week we're going to do a movie club. Obviously, we've kind of talked about, some of the trip here with the Hawaii thing, and so we kind of had to do a little bit of work ahead of time. So no spoilers there, but we decided that we wanted to talk about Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. We went back and we talked about the Fellowship, and we thought it would be fun to kind of do a retro movie club. And so now we figured, well, we're going to do another retro movie club. Let's just pick up where we left off, which means down the road, Super Friends, hint, hint, wink, wink, we're probably going to be doing Return of the King at some point. Just,
Just so you know.
If 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Lord of the Rings of Two Towers. Matt, you were just saying before we started recording tonight
Yeah.
that this movie for you was your favorite movie for a long time.
Yeah, it was. This movie to me was just, it was special. Okay, when did this movie come out?
2002.
Okay, 2002. I was 14. I mean, I was in the heart of, I feel like, being a teenager, and I loved it. It was just so good. I mean, it still is just so good.
See, this is an interesting dichotomy because when you were 14 and in the heart of like watching these fantasy films, when I was 14, I was actually reading these books.
Yeah.
For like maybe the second or third time, and was just like really invested in them.
Yeah.
So a little different, as far as our ages and when, where we were kind of getting into this series, but still really cool because that's a great age to get into some really great fantasy.
Yeah. It was, it does. It seems perfect, right? 14 is, you're a teenager. It's, I don't know. It was all just new and exciting. And I'd known about Lord of the Rings. I know I've talked in previous podcasts about how I kind of, I feel like it wasn't that long ago, that many podcasts ago, where we talked about introduction to, it was the Tolkien podcast when we talked.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we talked about, when we were introduced to Lord of the Rings, or in what way were we introduced, and this kid that always talked about Legolas, Patrick Temporelli. I still remember his name.
Right.
Still remember his name. Talking about Legolas. So I'd heard about it, and it sounded really, really cool, and I tried to read the books, but for me, it was just, I was trudging to get through some of the material, and I was way more interested in Harry Potter anyway, and that took precedent for me and reading those over again. And so the movies coming out it was really an exciting time, and The Two Towers was just so fun. It was just a fun movie. And we can talk about some of the specific things, and there's parts of this that are just, it's for me, iconic cinema to this day. And rewatching it recently, it was like, this still looks fantastic.
Right.
It still holds up with the way technology is so many years later.
I was just realizing in the next year, we're going to start hitting the 20-year anniversary. So in 2021 will be the 20-year anniversary of The Fellowship. Then 2022 will be the 20-year of Two Towers, and 2023 will be the 20-year of Return of the King.
Just wild. It's wild it's been that long.
And there was a lot of CGI in these movies, and we just recently went back and rewatched The Two Towers, and the CGI does not look bad.
No.
I think that they did a good amount of making sure that the CGI was, while it was there, it was a lot of background stuff. It was a lot, it wasn't a lot of the, up in your face, except for one character, which was all CGI.
Yeah.
But still
not that bad.
Looks pretty darn good.
Yeah, still not bad.
So the interesting thing, Two Towers, right?
Yeah.
It picks up right where the first movie leaves off, which obviously makes sense because if you don't know this, you need to know this, that all three of these movies were all filmed together at one time. So they filmed all the movies together, and then they went back and started doing all the editing, and they edited them all together and decided to release them 1 year, after each other.
Yeah.
So this movie picks up right after the battle, right where they're at the falls of Rauroth, and they're trying to determine like what they're gonna do, and Boromir goes after Frodo and tries to take the ring from him. But the interesting thing is, similar to the book, is that this movie splits up our heroes. In the first movie, they all kind of come together and they start this journey together, right? They travel from Rivendell and they make it all the way over here. They go through the mines of Moria. They go to Lothlorien. Like, they're pretty much all together. And then this movie splits them up. So Frodo and Sam are going to continue on their journey to Mordor with the ring. And there's a plot thread that follows them. Then you have Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, who end up kind of going through the war-torn nation of Rohan before they're reunited with Gandalf. And then you've also got, eventually get to Helm's Deep, but then you've also got the storyline of Merry and Pippin that basically are taken by the orcs, by the Uruk-hai, and how they eventually escape, meet up with Treebeard in Fangorn Forest, and then convince them to go to Isengard to help overthrow Saruman.
Yes.
And so it's interesting because we're in this huge expansive world and we're watching this movie, and now they do this great thing, and I love this in fantasy books, and I love this in fantasy movies, when they take all of our heroes and they split them up, because at some point, you just have this feeling like, okay, they're going to end up having to come back together. The storylines are going to have to recollide, but not in this movie. In this movie, they keep them all separate the entire movie. So it gives you like 3 narratives to kind of follow. When you watch this the first time, when you're 14, little 14-year-old Matt Shaw.
Oh boy, we're going back.
Did you have one narrative that you liked better than the other? Like, could you say, like, I really enjoyed the Merry and Pippin storyline better than the rest? Or the Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli storyline?
Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli was my favorite one.
What about that story?
I think it's just okay, so I guess because, I don't know. That's a great question. Now I have to think, why is it? And I still feel that way, by the way, after watching this probably within the last month. Again, kind of rewatching this movie, I still found myself enjoying that the most because I think there's probably the most action. There's the most forward momentum and movement and variety of places that they go to. There's obviously parts of each of the stories that I really love, but I think there's an attraction toward the adventurous nature of their storyline and their courage, and them thinking the Fellowship is dead kind of at the beginning, going, well, what do we do now? And then Aragorn, they get all pumped about, this is not over yet. We have to go find Merry and Pippin, their brothers. And so it was cool to follow that. And of course, Aragorn will always be he's an all-timer.
He's the king. And
any time that he's in a storyline, I'm probably going to be most invested in what he is doing. And even he's separated for a hot minute. So, there's lots of fragments, but that's why. I don't know. What about you? Did you have...
For me, it's the same. Partially, though, because I have my memories of reading the book first, right? Years before the movies came out.
Yep.
And in the books, Merry and Pippin are more like luggage in the books. They're
okay.
I mean, the movies, they make some changes, and we'll get to that in a bit, but in the movies they make some changes so they're less like luggage. And so to them it's kind of like, okay, you're just kind of going along and you're just kind of hoping that they get a break. But it kind of looks bleak, which is, Professor Tolkien wrote it that way intentionally. He wants you to feel bleakness for them and, the kind of the horrible situation they're in, because it really helps stress, like, how evil Sauron is and how his whole will is bent towards getting the ring. And he doesn't care about the nature and the state of the ring bearer. He just wants the ring.
Yeah.
But for me, when I watch this, it's still a lot of fun and I really love their storyline, but it's not my favorite. The Frodo-Sam storyline, once again, it's kind of going back. Theirs is interesting, right? Because now we have Gollum, who is a minor character in the Fellowship of the Ring movie, but becomes a major, major character going forward in the Two Towers. And I love a lot of the interplay and the reaction between Sam in this film and Gollum and some of the things that go on. But their story, especially because of some of the changes they made, their story just kind of meanders. It just kind of wanders. It feels like there's some time where their purpose is, yes, they're still working towards Mordor, but they easily get sidetracked and they just kind of meander through the scenery.
Totally.
So for me, it is the Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli story, because you've got these 3 unlikely friends
Yeah,
that come together, and they're trying to go and find Merry and Pippin, and then they come across Rohan, and they realize that there's more foulness going on in Rohan, and so they decide, like, well, Merry and Pippin are lost to us at this point, so let's help someone that we can help, and let's get involved, and let's try to help rally the nation that we're going through right now to try to help aid the overall effort of defeating the Dark Lord.
And that's, yeah, I think the other thing that I don't want to jump the gun on what we're going to talk about or anything, but there are a lot of things going for that storyline. The Legolas and Aragorn and Gimli storyline. Right. And, you know, obviously the end of the movie is for me probably the greatest scene ever in any movie that I've ever seen. And they're involved heavily, and the interplay between the characters and the love that they have for each other. And this is really where it gets solidified, I feel like, is in this film, particularly with those three characters, that they begin even more so to trust each other. And you can really, it's so funny because the Fellowship is apart, but this is where I feel like they really come together as a brotherhood in purpose. It's such great writing. It's such great editing. The flow is natural, even though we've got these three very distinct and very separate storylines. They're all playing for the same goal, and they just have to trust that they're all still okay, and that they're all still working toward the end result, and they don't know yet. Oh, it's fantastic. So
the interesting thing is, like, you know, you're talking about like how good this movie is. Like, all three of these movies, you know, were filmed at the same time. They were all wildly popular with fans. They were wildly popular with critics. The Two Towers is regarded as probably one of the more influential fantasy films, and for the Academy Awards, like, it was nominated, I think, for like 6 Academy Awards, including like Best Picture, Best Art Direction, Film Editing, Sound Mixing, and it won 2 Oscars for Best Sound Editing and Best Visual Effects. And I remember every freaking year when the Oscars would come on, and I was like, come on, Lord of the Rings, Best Picture. Like, how is The Fellowship of the Ring not Best Picture?
Right.
How is Two Towers not Best Picture?
Yeah.
And I kept thinking, like, come on. And then, of course, when Return of the King got there, that one won Best Picture, and it won a bunch of other stuff as well. And I kind of felt like it was one of those things where I think Hollywood and the people that vote in that process kind of went like, look, all 3 of these movies are going to be, you know, are contenders, and they honestly could win. So let's just wait until we get in one point and then kind of give it to it collectively, so that we're not saying like, and the same film series that was all filmed together at the same time wins Best Picture 3 years running. Yeah. Because, you know, I guess
there were other movies that were coming out.
Right. There definitely were other movies. But this was a popular movie. It grossed $951 million worldwide. Man. It was the highest grossing film of the year 2002. And it was the 4th highest grossing film of all time at its release.
And I remember the Fellowship of the Ring being hyped up. Like, we were all excited about it. And I remember, of course, going to see it the day it came out. But then when we realized how good these movies were going to be, the hype around the Two Towers was enormous. Yeah. And this is back in the day. Everybody listening probably remembers this. This is back in the day when you couldn't go online and reserve your seats. This is when you had to wait in line outside the freaking cinema for hours. And I remember that I was in school at the time, so I couldn't skip school to wait in line. So I had to go after school with my friends, and we ended up in the very front row for this movie.
Oh,
and brutal. It sucked. But as a young kid, it wasn't as big of a deal because my neck, you know, I didn't get sore. It was fine. But the excitement around the movie was was enormous. I mean, everyone was talking about it. Everyone was going to see it after school. We all were like, when are you going to get in line? When are you going to get in line?
Right.
Had our tickets. It was just so much fun.
See, I was in my early 20s when these movies came out. I mean, I was 23 when this movie came out.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was all about the midnight opening.
Yep.
You know, it was like, we're going to get tickets. We're going to go to the midnight opening. That way we can be the first people to see it. That way no one can ruin it for me. No one can talk to me about it. Because at this time, like, I wasn't on the internet daily like I am now for work and everything else. So, like, the idea of, like, the internet spoiling the movie for me wasn't there. But it was if I don't go see this midnight, Thursday night, someone's going to go see it midnight, Thursday night. They're going to come in on Friday and they're going to talk about it.
Yep.
They're going to come into a class. They're, in college. Someone's going to come in. Someone's going to talk about it. They're going to ruin it. And so it was always the midnight release. And, like, you get tickets for midnight release.
Yes.
And you'd show up at 9:30 and you'd wait for hours so you could make sure you could run in and grab the best possible seat.
Yes. I will just, again, as a quick side note here, as we're talking about these olden days of movie going.
Right.
I remember very disappointingly, so midnight release is obviously big deal. We did it for all the movies, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
I waited in line to see the third X-Men movie at midnight and waited forever. And I've never been more disappointed in a midnight movie going experience in my life. And I saw Spider-Man 3 at midnight. And X-Men 3 was so bad. I hated it. Anyway.
The funny thing is, like,
lots of good stuff.
The funny thing is, like, thinking about that now is, like, because now the movies, have shifted, right? Like, the night before, it's not a midnight release. It's like a 6 p.m. release. Like,
yes, totally.
They move that up so they can kind of pad that weekend stat a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, like, now with being able to, like, reserve seats in a lot of theaters across the country, I just reserve my seat and it's like, I'll see it at 6 or 7 o'clock. And then sometimes it's like, you know what, I'll see it at like 10 a.m. on Saturday morning and I'll just avoid it. Just depends. Like, but the idea now of going to now in my, I'm 40 years old. The idea of going, actually, I'll be 41 when this podcast releases. Now at an age of 41, a ripe old age. I like the idea of a midnight movie. Just like, I'm like, no.
He sounds terrible.
Are you kidding me? Like, I'm just used to getting up at like 6 a.m.
Yeah.
The idea of going and seeing a midnight movie that's like a 3-hour movie, no. Like, that's not going to happen. I'm going to fall asleep.
Yep. The only movies I'd still go see at midnight is a Star Wars movie, or if somehow there was another Lord of the Rings movie. That's it.
Even not that, because the way things have changed now, I'd go see the 6 p.m. show on a Thursday night.
Well, yeah, assuming they don't have those anymore.
Oh, yes.
Assuming that those didn't exist, which I'm so grateful that they do, because I've seen every Star Wars movie at like 7 o'clock. All the new ones. Right. It's like, oh, this is great. No one's going to ruin it for me, and I get to be home by 10.
Right. Exactly.
Anyway,
right.
Lord of the Rings is so good. So the Two Towers. back to the most.
Back in my day, movies were a nickel.
It's so funny how things have changed.
I know. So, like, let's talk a little bit about the plot of this movie, right? So you got the Sam and the Frodo, and we start off and they're crawling through the Emyn Muil, and that's where they end up meeting up with Gollum, right? And Frodo takes pity on Gollum, right?
Yes, immediately, yeah.
Takes pity on him, which to me, there's always kind of that callback to that moment when they're in the Mines of Moria in the Fellowship, and Frodo's talking with Gandalf, and he's like, he says, Uncle Bilbo should have killed him, and he's like, well, he pitied him, and he said, he pitied him, and that's why he didn't kill him, and this and that. And he's like, you don't know what showing pity and mercy is going to do, and we don't know yet what's going to be the end result, basically.
Right. Yeah.
And so, like, that all kind of happens in the movie before, and now we have this scene where Frodo decides to take pity on Gollum, and obviously in the story, narratively wise, like, Gollum is extremely important to what happens and what goes on going forward.
Oh yeah.
And so it's kind of fortuitous that Frodo decides to use him as a guide to get to Mordor, even though Sam's like totally against that.
Yep.
Totally against
Sam trusts him 0% and is right to trust him
Absolutely.
0%. However, it had to be that way.
He says he's the villain.
Yep.
And it's true. He is the villain.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we got this whole kind of plot with this going on. And the interesting thing about this whole plot is that it's interesting. It takes Sam and Frodo on this kind of journey, but it really helps to define the narrative of the fact that the ring, more and more, every step they take, they get closer to Mordor. Like, the ring is affecting Frodo. He's starting to make bad, decisions and bad judgment calls. And,
right.
Probably if he wasn't wearing the ring and hadn't been wearing it for so long, do you honestly think Frodo would have trusted Gollum to lead him to Mordor?
Right.
I mean, they looked at maps when they were in Rivendell. They know the general direction they have to go.
Yeah.
Is it really necessary? But, he thinks it is at the time and thinks that he has to have Gollum there.
Yep.
So we got that plot line. What other plot lines do we got going on?
Well, then we've got our poor Merry and Pippin, who at the end of the Fellowship of the Ring were carried away.
Yep.
By the scariest of all creatures ever to be in movies.
And kind of the coolest also.
So cool. Oh my gosh. So scary and so cool. This part of Merry and Pippin's storyline is cool. I mean, not that the other parts aren't cool. It's just kind of slower when we get into Fangorn Forest. However, before it's crazy because we catch up with them and the Uruk-hai are just running, right? They're always running. They're just not tired, running, and they're scary, and they're like gross looking, and they're not. I mean, obviously, Merry and Pippin aren't doing well. It's not like they're like, hey, here's some food. Oh, do you need some water? It's like, no, we're just carrying you.
Right.
Literally.
The interesting thing, too, is I always kind of compare the orcs to vampires. Because orcs really, they don't like the light. They can't really be out in the light. Like, they can tolerate it for short times a little bit. But then Saruman decides to, cross orcs with humans and creates these Uruk-hai, these, hybrids that, can run faster than orcs, can endure the daylight, even though they don't necessarily, care for it. But, they can endure it and they can just kind of go. And so there's this kind of this hybrid of a vampire that can be out during the daytime,
right? And
isn't a sparkly. We're not talking a sparkly vampire here. We're talking old school vampire, and that's kind of I like my analogy. And I don't know if Professor Tolkien was kind of looking at that,
right?
There's kind of that theme, that kind of undercurrent there.
Yeah, it's terrifying, and the way that they're birthed is disgusting and terrifying.
Yeah.
My gosh.
Which is great because it really helps you feel terrified of this, which is what Merry and Pippin feel.
Yeah, and this is where I'll talk about some of the musical cues, right? Dun 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 dun. That's when you go, oh freak, here we go.
Right.
And that's when you know that shiz is about to go down, and you're about to see what the dark side is doing. And they're, so it's anyway. So they're carrying Merry and Pippin, and they're making them drink nasty, gross, oil stuff.
Right.
I imagine it's blood, but I don't know what it is. It's awful.
It's basically their version of a whiskey or something to help keep their bones and their legs on fire to keep them moving.
It's disgusting.
It's disgusting. Very disgusting. Visually, it's very disgusting in this film.
So anyway, we know what happens. They stop. They camp out. Meat's back on the menu happens.
Yeah, there's an argument.
And our friends roll away. Not without some close calls, but eventually they're able to roll away into the forest. Right. Luckily. Thank goodness. But that's so quotable, right? That whole part. Meat's back on the menu, boys. You're like, oh, gross. These guys are savages. How terrifying.
I say that sometimes when I drop down barbecue in front of my boys, and they have no clue where it's coming from. After I've been grilling and I like drop down ribs, I'm like, meat's back on the menu, boys. And they're like, okay, Daddy.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. Ew. What are you talking about?
Yes. So, and then we stop, right? Hard stop on their storyline after we see
Right.
them roll away and escape. Very scary, very cool. And then we get a stop on theirs. Then we get our third storyline.
Right, and that's the storyline with Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, where they're chasing after the Uruk-hai, and they end up coming across the Rohirrim in Rohan. And basically, the Rohirrim tells them, like, well, we killed all these orcs.
Yeah, there ain't nothing left.
There's nothing there. Which devastates our heroes.
Oh, yeah, man.
And so they decide then to, since it's pretty much done, they're like, well, let's go have a look anyway. We'll go have a look. We'll figure things out. And so they go to the spot, and then all of a sudden, Aragorn, with his expert tracking skills, realizes that they escaped into the forest.
Yes.
They go into the forest, and they end up having this chance encounter. They end up meeting Gandalf in there, who has come back from the dead. He's no longer Gandalf the Grey. He's now Gandalf the White.
Yep.
His mission is not done here, so he was sent back to finish it off. And then, of course, all four of them ride to Rohan to go help aid King Theoden and to try to see what they can do.
And there's some of the coolest parts in this movie, and I was watching this with my sister the last time, and she's like 21, I think. And she was too young when I was super into it. And I'll be honest, I was the only one in my family that was super into this. Like, I bought the special editions on DVD with my own money. Like, this was all me. So I was out of the house, and she's never really experienced these movies. And by never really, I mean she had never seen these movies. Okay. So this was like watching it with somebody for the first time. And when Gandalf was back, she was like, what? How does that happen? And it's cool because then he tells a story, and you see them going down with the fire beast, and
with
it's
the
like
Balrog.
You're like, oh man. So it was cool to see her kind of experience that for the first time, of this resurrected Gandalf coming, and it's interesting him not really remembering. Oh, Gandalf the Grey. That's what my name was, and it's kind of all coming back to him. He's like, it's like being born.
Yeah.
Again, but like your memories are slowly kind of coming back. You're like, okay, now I remember who everybody is and what my role is. So, and some of my favorite parts are at the beginning of this movie with the tracking. I mean, we start to see, what do your elven eyes see? And it's so, some of those lines, and when they're tracking, everybody's so cool. But yeah, so we get them going up to see what's going on with Theoden, because the writers of Rohan were like, hey, I got kicked out.
Right, exactly.
And that's not cool. So some ish is going on up there. And Gandalf says the same thing. Yo, get out. You got a different mission. Merry and Pippin are fine. Get out.
Right, exactly. And so then we get back to like the Merry and Pippin storyline in this film. And they try to help convince the Ents, with Treebeard, that they need to help out.
They gotta fight, man.
This is for all of Middle Earth. Like, you have to be involved. And they get turned down. In the end, the Entmoot decides, all these Ents decide not to do it, and say, okay, well, take us south, take us closer to Isengard. That'd be a great place to help get us over to where we need to go, which they're kind of leading them down the Primrose Path here.
Right.
And then they get them to get down to Isengard, and they realize that Saruman's betrayed the Ents. He's cut down trees. He's gone into the whole like machinations, the machines of war, and he's invested in this. And it enrages Treebeard. And it enrages the other Ents as well, which then gets the Ents to go to war and to try to throw down Saruman from his tower in Orthanc. And that's like, for me, I loved that scene.
Yes, so good.
Because it was just like, to watch, even though like this is a CGI tree, or tree creature, I guess, to see the realization that someone that you trusted, that you'd known for a long time, betrayed you. The emotion there is a very real emotion. The emotion of betrayal, and then wanting revenge against the person that betrayed you. Like, it's well done, obviously. Storytelling wise, it fits into the narrative really great. It's maybe a little cliche. Like, you see what's going to happen. Like, you know what's coming forward. They're definitely foreshadowing this is going to happen. But still, the emotion there is real and very human. I think something that most people can relate to, which I think is great for storytelling.
Yeah, and the storytelling is so deep in all of these. The books included. I haven't read all of them, but the way that it makes sense that the Ents are able to even be successful, that Isengard, the army is gone.
Right.
They're already marching. And so it's almost vacant. There's like some guys there just kind of dilly-dallying around, like no one's really there. And obviously Saruman is not expecting anything to happen here, right? I'm safe, I'm good, my army's about to go unleash hell. And I'm just sitting back here with this, at the crappy little worm tongue, but we haven't gotten to that part quite yet in the story where, then we pick up on the three back in Rohan, I think. Is that where they're at?
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what's going on with King Theoden, and eventually they're able to release him from the spell, and it's creepy. That part's really creepy. The way that they make the eyes, right? King Theoden's eyes as he's succumbing to this evil power, and the laugh and everything about it is so creepy and evil. Oh, it's so good.
It's good. I love it. Yeah, and that whole storyline, they eventually,
banish out
Saruman's influence there in the film. And Theoden then looks, like 20, 30 years younger.
Yeah.
And then he decides, that he's going to, he's going to stand up for Rohan, and he takes his sword and he decides that he's going to fight. But not only is he going to fight, but that he's going to go help save his people and defend all of his people that were evacuated to Helm's Deep.
Right.
And so he makes that decision, and boom, off they go.
Not super popular decision, but
no, not super popular at the time. But then we flip back and we get more of the Frodo, Sam, Gollum, and basically Gollum's just leading them through the Dead Marshes. He leads them to the Black Gate, and then eventually they end up getting captured by rangers from Ithilien, and it's actually Faramir. It's Boromir's brother, and this whole storyline is interesting because it's the brother that wasn't chosen.
Yeah.
And it's the brother who wants to do right by his family, and he decides that he's going to send the ring to Gondor to be used as a weapon. And then, of course, like they're in this battle of Osgiliath, and at some point Faramir remembers, what actually needs to be done, and decides to release them and let them go off and go their own way.
And there's parts where Frodo again takes pity on Gollum, right? Yep. I'm going to kill Gollum. Is he with you? Because if he's not, I'm just going to kill him.
Yeah.
Because he's trespassing. He's by this sacred river or waterfall or whatever it is, the little pond thing.
Yeah,
he's
the little
singing
pool.
about his fish. Again, he takes pity. And for me, and you just mentioned kind of the human element of storytelling for you in that with the Ents and the betrayal. Every time I watch The Two Towers, the story that gets told retrospectively with Boromir and Faramir, their brotherhood and their father, is what hits me every time. It's just, it's so relatable and understandable. And you then feel for Faramir why he's slowing them down, is he just wants his dad to be proud of him.
Yep.
And he's like, if I can get the Ring of Power to my father's kingdom, I will be the chosen son.
Right.
It's just, it's beautiful, and how he learns about or how he tells them about Boromir's death, because they don't know.
Right.
And just that whole interaction there is tense, because you know that he's slowing them down from getting to where they need to go, but it's so relatable and beautiful. And I just calling attention to that it's so good.
Yep.
It's such great storytelling, man.
And then kind of like the last big kind of plot point back with Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli is they go with Theoden to Helm's Deep, and they're going to try to help the people there. And of course, Saruman sent out this huge, massive army
big.
Of Uruks, and they have to defend Helm's Deep. And this is like the big kind of climax of this film, is the battle for Helm's Deep. And it's an amazing battle scene. Like
it's the best battle scene ever made for me. I cannot think of a better battle scene. It's the best. Gosh,
I would love to say that you're wrong and here's this other, but I don't know that I could say that though, because I think I agree with you. I mean, it's amazing.
It's that balance
shown on film
with the CGI, the miniatures, the practical effects, the real sets. It all comes together in such a cool way, and there's so much that happens during the Battle of Helm's Deep, and we get flashes of what's going on with Frodo and Sam. We get flashes of what's going on with Merry and Pippin, and this is where we learn about the Ents, and they're attacking at the same time that Helm's Deep is going on, and the stories are all coming together. But what I mentioned before of these characters really coming together, this is where we see them again. Those three in particular, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, really come together.
Yeah, they go beast mode.
Yeah, and lest we forget, Aragorn recently fell off a cliff and they thought he was dead.
Right.
And then he rides in practically half dead on his horse into Helm's Deep. So he's not in the best of shape, but he's going to fight his freaking butt off.
Right. And then you've got the storyline with Gandalf coming back.
Yep.
With Éomer and his Yorlings and, coming back to fight.
The Wood Elves come, right, to honor there's these moments that hit you in the heart that in this battle where you know that they're going to lose, or they know they're going to lose. There's no possible way they can win. Even when the elves show up, you're like, well, thanks, but you're going to die.
Right.
Do you see them all? It's just the odds of impossibility are enormous and so scary. It's such an incredible series of events at the end of the Two Towers. I mean, it may be the best part of the whole Lord of the Rings series is what happens at the end of the Two Towers, between the clashing of everything that's going on. That may be my favorite half hour, I'll say, but it's probably longer.
It's longer, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
There's so much that happens there, and little things that you can glean from each scene that's just so poetic. Keeping count of how many people that they've killed, right? How many of the orcs they've destroyed is really funny, and throwing of Gimli across, don't tell anybody. There's so many great interactions with the characters and so many cool little battle scenes we could talk about. I don't know, sliding on a shield while, arrowing down. I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So cool. Anyway.
And then the last little plot is we see Gollum deciding to take Frodo and Sam up to Cirith Ungol to take them to her, he says. And he's making that kind of decision, that back and forth, which I love that little scene. And then that's kind of where the Two Towers movie kind of ends. I thought it'd be kind of interesting, Matt, to kind of give you a rundown of some of the bigger differences between the books and the movies. So, obviously, when this was being written, originally it was being written as two movies. Fellowship of the Ring, was going to be a two movie, and then when it was owned by Miramax, and then it got split under three when New Line Cinema got it. And so they didn't really have like a real end point, so they decided to make the Battle of Helm's Deep the climax, which is different because in the book, they actually, Frodo and Sam going up into Cirith Ungol is the climax, because Frodo gets stabbed by Shelob, and Sam thinks he's dead, And so Sam takes the ring and takes the little vial glass that Lady Galadriel gave him, and he goes off to say, like, well, you're not here anymore, but I'm going to keep going. And it kind of has this heroic moment, and that's how the book ends.
Oh, man. Yeah,
and
okay.
So it's completely different here.
Totally.
They just kind of allude to it. But the writers really wanted, since they didn't feel like they had a clear point to end the second movie, they didn't want to go that far in, because then there wasn't going to be as much material for the third movie, so they decided to kind of make the Battle of Helm's Deep the climax. Also, a couple other things about the Battle of Helm's Deep. In the books, Helm's Deep wasn't like this thing like where they're like, we're going to go to Helm's Deep and we're going to do this. But basically, Theoden wasn't possessed by Saruman. He was just kind of like depressed and deluded and tricked by Wormtongue. And he's not really kind of sure what to do in the book. And so he's kind of like, well, let's go visit Erkenbrand. And Erkenbrand's like a relative of his. And Erkenbrand's in Helm's Deep. But the thing is, Erkenbrand's not even in this film. And he just kind of like so happens to be like captured at Helm's Deep when this happens. Also, the elves don't show up at Helm's Deep.
Really?
None of that's in the book either. The whole warg attack on the way to Helm's Deep doesn't happen. That whole kind of warg attack thing, there's a part that was cut from the book of Fellowship of the Ring. So they kind of took a section from Fellowship of the Ring, the book they didn't use in that movie, and kind of moved it over here. So our Aragorn doesn't fall over a cliff. He doesn't come back in half dead. There's none of this. Also,
interesting.
Also, some of the stuff with, like, you know, some of the conversations with Arwen. Like, Arwen in the books is a very, very, very minor character. Hardly has any dialogue. Like, you get most of her story in the appendices. And so this whole idea where she's trying to, like, convince her father to, like, send help and, do all that. It's like, none of that's...
Man, there were a lot of changes. I actually like all the changes you've talked about so far too.
There was a lot of changes in this book. Also, Treebeard in the book doesn't immediately decide to go to war. I talked about, like, in the book, Merry and Pippin are more just kind of luggage, or just kind of being like kind of brought along. Right. Also, in the movie, the hobbits meet Gandalf the White early on, which is why when they see them later on, following Isengard's destruction, they're not, like, super surprised, whereas in the books, they haven't met him, and so they don't meet him until they come there. And then obviously I talked about the whole thing with Shelob. There's some differences. Faramir doesn't want to send the ring to Gondor. And then, of course, the name, the Two Towers. The books actually reference, because of how it ends with Shelob, references Minas Morgul and Orthanc, more kind of about the two towers that are part of this book. Whereas the film, in order to kind of tie the evil alliance between the two towers, ties Orthanc with Barad-dûr, which is Saruman's tower. Or Sauron's tower and Saruman's tower.
And Saruman's tower,
Whereas
that's what I always assumed.
In the book, it's more about Orthanc and Minas Morgul, like these two big towers that are taking place. One with Treebeard's storyline and one with Frodo and Sam's
Interesting.
storyline.
Oh, okay.
There's lots of other things. Some of the Eomer stuff's a little different and this and that, but overall, the main thrust of the source material is there, but they just move some things around. They change some things to build, really, like, you look at it, Peter Jackson did it to build tension and drama.
Right.
In some parts. Like the whole thing with Aragorn coming back nearly from the dead just to show up and then go beast mode at the Battle of Helm's Deep. I mean, it's really to build tension and do some character stuff. But there's some changes there, but I tell you something, though, that is a wonderful addition, because it's not in the books. That's the score. The musical score in this movie. Just so freaking good by every stretch of the imagination. I can listen to this every day if I wanted to.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. I mean, what else can you say? It's perfect. It's perfect.
it matches the tone. It makes you feel the things you need to feel. And we talked about this with the Fellowship too, right? It's just perfect.
Yep.
It brings, and now when you listen to it, you can picture in your mind exactly what's happening, and it makes you go to places in your mind. Like it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's just iconic. It's perfect. It's incredible.
I also loved the special effects in this movie. You've got Treebeard and Gollum that are all CGI characters. Yep. And of course, like, it took a lot to do this, and we know a lot. I mean, if you've watched anything, you know how Andy Serkis played Gollum and did all like the screen capture stuff for him.
Yep.
Interesting though that the Weta digital team for this film, for like editing, they doubled their staff to 260 people.
Oh my gosh.
Because they said they would produce 73 minutes of digital effects with 799 shots.
Good grief.
And just for a frame of reference, Treebeard, it says it took them between 28 and 48 hours per frame to render.
Oh.
So they have to create it all, then they have to get it all and get all layered, and then they have to render it to get it applied out. We're talking a day to 2 days just to render a frame. And of course, 30 frames per second is what we see when we go to a movie theater. So just
times
think
have
about
changed.
Yeah, just think. Obviously, yeah, definitely things have changed. But like,
holy cow, that's
go
so
back
much
and
work.
Go back and do that. So some of the cool stuff is like a 14-foot tall puppet was used, and it was on a wheel, and so there was molds that they could do. But Dominic Moynihan and Billy Boyd, who play Merry and Pippin, says basically they sat on bicycle seats that were connected to Treebeard's hands to avoid discomfort, and were left alone on the set, sitting on the puppet's hands during breaks. That they really wouldn't even get off, and the puppet was just shot against a blue screen. And so, like, you think about that, like, all those hours just, like, sitting on a bicycle seat.
Just sitting there. I can hardly sit in this seat during the podcast.
Right.
And I am not sitting on a bicycle seat. I know you're all thinking that I'm on an exercise bike while I'm doing this. I'm not. I am not.
That's true. You are not.
It's the special effects. What I've always admired about these films is it's at a time where CGI was really getting good.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really, really, really good. And so Peter Jackson took a page from like Star Wars and used a lot of miniatures during the filming. And you can kind of sometimes when you go back and watch it now, you can see where it's miniatures. You can tell, but I like that way more than when I go back and watch Attack of the Clones and George Lucas really pushing the envelope with CGI, which great job, good for you, but good grief, it looks like you made this movie in a computer. I'm not thinking that when I'm watching Lord of the Rings.
Right.
I'm thinking, man, that's so impressive. Even the miniatures, you're like, it looks so good. It's so cool. And so anytime that you can make it believable without only using computers, I'm always impressed. I just think it's so neat. So I appreciate the care and the attention that Peter Jackson put into all of the mediums that he used when filming these movies, in particular this one, because there's a lot of it. I mean, Helm's Deep is holy cow. How do you do that in the early 2000s? Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Just incredible.
Yeah, really, really, really good stuff, even by today's standard.
Totally. Oh my gosh.
So Matt, let's kind of wrap up our conversation here. I think that while I think The Fellowship is my favorite movie, I really love, because it's so hard for me to split these three apart because they really feel like just one continuous film. But I definitely think that The Two Towers deserves a lot of recognition because it really did some great things with storytelling. The CGI that was in this film compared, to the first film, as we're kind of watching through this kind of like retro movie club kick we're going on, the CGI stepped it up to a whole new level with entire characters that were CGI. The score is amazing. I think this movie really stands the test of time. I really do.
I agree. It really does. And like I said, this was probably my favorite movie.
Yeah.
Probably. It was definitely, I'll say this, it was my favorite Lord of the Rings movie until I was probably 25. And I went back and I revisited it after it had been a few years since I had last seen The Lord of the Rings. And then I was like, okay, Fellowship is absolutely perfect. And it's hard for me to ever deny that. But then when I watch The Two Towers and I revisit Helm's Deep and all of the emotions that are in this movie, I go, okay, maybe this is the best one.
Yeah.
It's that good. It's just so good. I've got nothing bad to say.
Yeah. I feel you. So, Super Friends, the question of the week we're going to ask you is, what is your favorite storyline here? Is it the Frodo, Sam, Gollum storyline? Is it the Aragorn, Gimli, Legolas storyline? Or is it the Merry Pippin storyline? I'm curious because while I think they're all really good, I mean, Matt and I have said that the Aragorn, Legolas, Pippin, or Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli ones were our favorites, but I'm curious to hear from you. And so let us know. You can get us at all of our normal social media presence places. Email us. You can Facebook, Twitter. You can send us on Instagram. You can send us a voicemail, and we'll talk about that next week. All right, Matt. That's chapter 2 of our retro Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
One.
Can't wait for number 3. I got to rewatch Return of the King again. It's been a hot minute since Return of the King.
Me too. So anyway, from all of us here at the Fortress of Nerditude, to all of you out there, wherever you may be, may the Force be with you. Always.